Get the power to do more with storable software. More automating, more control, more revenue, more time back in your day. Storable helps operators do more with the most powerful technology in self-storage. Learn more at storable.com/do-more.
All right. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, The Future is Contactless, Powering a Great Customer Experience with SiteLink. We're honored to have Jim Mooney, Vice President of Operations of Freedom Storage Management, joining us today to help share their success story, and SiteLink's Product Manager, Jim Ferguson, as well. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand things off to Jim and Jim. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, Alex. So Jim and Jim, right? Like, let's just be honest. We've known each other for 10 plus years. We're Jims, but we also call each other by our last name sometimes just to make it easier for the people to actually know who it is. So if you hear me say Mooney, you just kind of understand where we are. So Mooney, if you just want to give a little background, how many years in the industry, just a little background of who you are.
Yeah, sure. I've been in the industry 20 plus years. Started, all those years ago as a site manager and worked my way up through an organization to become Vice President of Operations. And in 2019, I joined Freedom Storage Management, a company based here in Eastern Pennsylvania. And we are growing our portfolio now. We're up to 16 stores. It's a smaller organization, but smaller is good. We can make change faster, and it's one of the best industries I've ever worked in. So I tell people all the time, it's fun to go to work, and it really is.
That is very true. And as I said, so we have known each other for 10 years. So I've been in the industry a little over, I guess, 11 now. So when I started, I met Jim, and I started in SiteLink. I worked there for 7+ years. Wore many hats at that company. I left that company, worked for an operator for a little over a year, and then consulted for a little while, and then I've come back to SiteLink Storable when they actually became one company. So I will say, so Jim and I do have a history, but we also have a very good friendship, and he has been instrumental in many, many pieces of SiteLink. He is one of the few customers that we called it the Jim Mooney experience, to be honest, because he would fly down to Raleigh and he would come to the SiteLink office and he would go through his, cases. He'd go through his wish list. He'd walk around the property. He'd meet the different individuals. And we called it that because a lot of other clients actually heard about this thing and they wanted the same experience of the Jim Mooney experience. So when anybody else would come, they would also get this Jim Mooney experience. I think Alex kind of set the tone for what we're doing. I think contactless, I think this is a very big thing right now with all of our lives. This is, we all live on Amazon Prime. We all love these contactless concepts for most other pieces. So why not bring an operator into and talk with a lot of other operators and kind of share the experience of what they've done, what has worked, what has not worked, any tips and tricks. So honestly, Jim, one thing right now for me is, before all of this, we'll say, and then starting of the pandemic, what are some things that you tweaked or that you tried to put in place or that worked, that didn't work? Like, what are some transitions that you guys did with your operations during the world of the pandemic and COVID and contactless?
Well, Fortunately, we were able to keep all our managers in our offices when COVID hit. We did lock our facilities down, so we didn't allow guests into our property, which we still had people try and bang on our doors and knock on our doors and all those things. So it was a very interesting time. And we started trying to do more things remotely. We've been using eSign forever, and we tried to figure out how we could utilize eSign with our customers, and we were doing a lot of stuff over the phone. Customers were calling in back and forth, and we were literally spending 10, 15, 20 minutes on the phone trying to do a lease with somebody over the phone, getting the lease complete, getting the payment, and then emailing them the e-sign documents to sign in, and hopefully they got it and came back. We had some struggles with, like other people probably have, doing e-sign on phones versus tablets or computers. Different browsers caused problems. So there were a lot of challenges. But we tried to accommodate them, the customers as best we could, and keep the managers moving and keep the activity going. We saw a downturn in activity through COVID, but not anywhere where we thought we were going to. So we prepared for the worst, but fortunately we did okay during April, May, and June. And then we started with hearing about the whole button from SiteLink, and of course, knowing me, Jim, I hopped right on it and was on the phone back and forth with Eric and a couple of the techs trying to figure out how we could make it work and how we could utilize it to its fullest potential.
That's fair. So go back to a second when you said some transitions in operations. What kind of shifts do you see? You said were number of leads going down, or less tire kickers, or like what kind of shifts did you see with your leads in general during this time frame?
Well, we definitely did see less leads, but we saw more quality leads. So the tire kickers weren't necessarily out there because most people were under the approach where, and fortunately, like I said, we were able to do stuff electronically where some of our competitors or the smaller organizations still didn't have the technology or use the technology, so they might not even been open. So when they found somebody who could do it for them electronically, they were, okay, I'm here, you got it, I can do this, let's go. But it was the inquiries were down, but not where where I anticipated they would be. They were actually higher than I thought, lower than a normal year. But we still had people in Pennsylvania and Tennessee and Maryland where we're at still needing to move. Life went on, and it still goes on, and we're still trying to adapt and work with them the way we can. So the inquiries were definitely down, but more real inquiries, for lack of a better word.
Okay. What about where your properties are? Did you see any kind of shift with like students or housing or any kind of thing like that? Like normal time frame when when students actually hit the rental cycle is different, or normal, like you kind of have expectations in certain months. Did you see any kind of shift with that since?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We saw a lot of college kids earlier this year than anticipated because the schools were closing down. We've had kids in units longer than anticipated because they didn't go back yet. We have had some that will come and clean out the unit and take the stuff back home because they don't know what they're doing or they're virtually. But we did see a probably 5-6 week early push on some colleges, which was a thing we weren't anticipating, which was nice for us.
Okay, and then so on to those less leads but better qualified leads, I guess that's a way I'll and kind of talk about it. And then like with students, what kind of things did you do during that time frame that maybe were shifting timing, or like with promotions or discounts or any kind of thing like that? Did you with students, I just didn't know what kind of things you may have switched, or was it just we kind of moved things a little bit and everything kind of ran as we planned, or did you shift any other kind of discountish kind of concepts? Unfortunately or unfortunately, we had the lucky timing of opening 2 brand new climate control buildings in April on 2 of our properties. So we were, scrambling to see how this was going to affect. So we did put some steeper than normal discounts on those 2 climate control buildings, trying to, and price them accordingly. Again, like everybody else, we stopped all rate increases and we stopped really pushing our rates higher. We did keep, using the Veritech system and things like that, we did keep our rates, at a constant level. But our discounts were, pretty standard for college kids. But as we were getting full, like everything else using technology, discounts come off as you get full. So, my manager always has 50% off the first month in their hip pocket, that if somebody's going to walk out the door or hang up on them, we can use that to capture that rental, because we know the length of stay right now, especially in our markets, we're still looking 14 to 18 months. Wow.
So if I have to give up half a month to capture that one rental, I'm going to do it.
Sure. So I didn't remember for the 2 properties that you opened just at the beginning of all of this. What kind of things did you have for that? I mean, I'm guessing compared to a mature property or a lease-up property, there's lots of different things, but like with clients coming in how did you guys accommodate, or any kind of strategies or things you guys did there?
Well, again, by using what we've been doing with, we don't overlock any of our vacant units. Are all seal tagged, and we actually put locks in the units and sell them that way. So we were able to have people go over and take a look at the unit if they wanted to, if it was one of our unmanned properties. And actually both of these properties are unmanned, so they had, we did a lot of stuff remotely. But we had the systems in place with our DaVinci locks and our tags and our drop boxes that people could go take a look. We have a guest gate code they could use to get in. Then we just changed the gate code, and we have our maintenance team going around after to make sure. But most people, when they go to the unit and look at it, they open the door and it's right, they're going to call us back, and we're going to do the unit right there with the phone. So
that's wonderful.
Again, we did put some steeper than normal move-in discounts, concessions on the climate control building to ramp it up. But I can tell you right now, and sitting in middle October, we're about 85% in both of those climate control buildings occupied now.
Wow, that's well done. That's fantastic. Did you this is me? I'm just thinking more about the lease-up property or just your mature properties. Did you see any kind of shift with the typical trends of history with sizes or desires from clients? Like more people wanted smaller units versus big units or anything like that, or was it pretty on par from history?
Pretty on par for history. I mean, a lot of it, unfortunately, we're in a position where we have a lot of highly occupied stores. So a lot of times people were taking sizes that I had available. So they might have gone to a 10 by 15 versus a 10 by 10 because I had the 10 by 15 and not want to wait for that 10 by 10. Because the one thing we did see as well, our move outs slowed down through that period. So we're renting less, but we were moving out less because people were worried with the COVID. So we didn't have a big turnover through April and May like we thought we would. So we kind of had the best of both worlds in that scenario.
Okay. So you mentioned that you pushed off rate increases. Can I ask, when did you kind of like, around what date ish, like what month? And then, have you like, what have you guys done since? Like what time frame? How did you guys hold it off?
We stopped them in April immediately when COVID hit. But we went back on September. We sent them out for effective September 1st.
Okay.
And they're back in, and we actually, fortunately, we do our rate increases on a regular basis, so we're always looking at them. So we did have a bigger than normal September going out because we played a little catch up, but we kind of split that between September and October and got them. And realistically, again, trying not to gouge anybody and have anybody call that card on us. We never wanted to do that to anybody, so our rates were still competitive. And we were still, using the tools in Veritech and SiteLink to do our rate increases. And again, we've sent them out. And we've, you'll always have your churn when people get a rate increase. Some people will move out, but most people, as Bob Copper would say all the time, people are, they're there. They're not going to move out for a $5 or $6 or $7 rate increase, especially on a bigger unit.
That's fair. So, kind of better understanding of what you guys have done and what tweaks you guys have made. Have you noticed anything or heard stuff from your managers about some of your competition? Like if there's REITs or a certain type of operator that might be close to some of your properties that, really pushed rates or really dropped rates, or anything that you saw different with your competition?
No, fortunately or luckily for us, we're in the secondary, tertiary market, so we don't have a lot of REITs in our back door, which is very nice. And a lot of our competitors are more of the mom and pops, one owner, two store, stuff like that. And a lot of those guys don't do a lot with rates anyway. And to say we don't worry about them, we do, but we don't focus on it. So we know we're higher than the other people in our market, and we're a better product. So we're going to push that philosophy that we're better and we demand more. We actually tried to get one of our competitors an effort to raise their rates a little bit because he's so low, and he won't. So it's baffling. But anyway.
That's fair. So I know there's been some things that have come out, with Sparefoot, and other people have done some things with websites or, just different things. The word contactless clearly is a thing we're going to talk about and continue talking about. Did you guys make any changes within your engagements with prospects, engagement with customers, or on your website, or, on your call scripts for when someone answers the phone to kind of say, I'm just thinking of my everyday life where I just see more things about cleanliness and, just all these other aspects. What kind of things did you guys do within your facility, within your, like any of those items?
Really, I mean, the biggest thing, like our website, we changed a little over a year ago, and we have rentals and reservations, all that online. So we were already ahead of the game with that, and we were doing very, very well with our reservations and our website rentals. Again, the biggest thing probably for us was yes, we're open, we're here, but we're not physically in the office. So let's see how we can work with you. Doing a lot of over the phone, and thankfully, again, we had e-sign that we could send the documents to them. We did have some older customers that we had to work with, and they would come down and we would print it out, and we would kind of let them in, but not really let them in, so they could sign it, and then we'd scan it back in. but it was just dealing with them the way they, and we had the safety glass up in there, and of course the masks I'm not a huge fan of, but you gotta do what you have to do in certain states. But just, I mean, be careful. And like right now, we had a meeting with my managers the other day. We're going into the cold season, and I told them point blank, guys, if you're sick, don't come in. I don't, yes, I appreciate it, but I do not want you in the office if you're sick. Now, if you only got allergies, that's one thing. But if you're fever, all that stuff, stay home, because we don't know what it's going to be, and we don't need anybody else, with that. So just do yourself a favor. If you're sick, stay home. And that's for everybody right now. Anywhere we're at. My wife works in a doctor's office, so I hear it all the time. So.
No, that's fair. So let's kind of talk about, and luckily, me exit full screen real quick on this. So one of the things that Jim is more than gracious to actually share with us are some of the things that he has done at his properties, and showed some examples of the things, so that everyone one, we can talk about what's already existing in the system, like some of the tools that are there, some of the forms, some of the tips, but also some of the tweaks that Jim has made at his properties. And that's one of the things I want to kind of showcase. So do you want to hit emails or forms first?
Go to forms first.
Right. So in here, I named them a little bit different, so it's easier for me to find them.
Okay.
Just for your knowledge. And I have screenshots too of this that I can show the audience, but I also just wanted to bring it up in SiteLink so people can kind of fully see. Do you have a preference of which one you want me to pull up?
Pick one, I don't care.
Okay. So here is the first one. So I guess my first ask is, for a booking confirmation, what is your reason for doing it? And then how fast are you actually having this go out? Like how many days per?
Okay. So for us, and again, because Jim, you well know, we've had this conversation multiple times. The term reservation in our industry is a widely thrown around term with multiple different meanings. So for me in SiteLink, the only time I use the term reservation is if somebody actually pays me the reservation fee. So in SiteLink, and we use that to stop the shopping. So they're going to pay the reservation fee. And the way it works for us is, if you pay the reservation fee, A, it's non-refundable, but B, it automatically applies to your admin fee when you move in. So we've made our reservation fee and admin fee the same amount. So it's a clear line so you can watch it go through. So when we pay the reservation fee in SiteLink, it prompts you to send out the booking confirmation. And that's how we tweaked the booking confirmation. We had Christina Avellino, who's a great friend of both of ours, Jim, help me redesign some of my HTML letters, because that's all. There are a lot of work to those things, and she's really good at it. So she helped me redesign these forms so they look nice and pretty, and they would go out straight. And we've just added a few things in here. The reservation, all these prompts come right from SiteLink. When we're going to hold it to the reservation date, it's very important. The appointment date. And then just some tips and all there for the people. And then they're going to e-sign this thing, so they know that what they've done, what they're getting, when they're supposed to be there, and that it's a non-refundable deposit. Because especially when we're full, and a lot of us are, you don't want to take a reservation fee today for something they're going to move it on Thursday or Friday, and then now I don't want any more, cancel. They want their money back. So if they're going to commit to it, there's got to be some tangible stuff to it.
That's fair. So one of the things that Storable did, and especially with SiteLink, but it's used across a couple of different platforms, so we'll kind of talk about each of these things, but is this piece, this reservation.online move-in URL. And what Jim is kind of saying is that, hey, this is already a thing that he's been using with his clients, I guess prospects is a better term, and now we added. So I love this line, and I was going to ask you about that, because it's, why wait? Click on this link to complete your rental online, and here's the link, right? And it takes you right to that task. Have you had, so what's been the kind of the response from prospects, I guess, for this, or any of your forms that you've kind of modified?
Well, again, we use the booking confirmation, and we use the lead follow-up quote. They're kind of mirror forms for same principles, but one's where they pay the fee, one's where they don't. But again, we're putting the ball back in the customer's court that, yes, you've already done this, or yes, you have the reservation. Well, why wait? Why wait to come into the office and do those things? You can actually just click this link and do it now. And I had a customer I forget where we're at right now. He was in New York coming down to Pennsylvania, and we were talking about a unit. He goes, well, I'm going to be there Saturday, but I'm not quite sure what time. I said, listen, I can send you this link. You can rent it right now. I'll have the lock waiting for you in the unit. That way, whatever time you get here, you can just go right in, and everything's done and waiting for you. He goes, oh, man, that's great. That way he didn't have to rush. So when you create the units, that you're making their lives easier. And Jim, you know, I say it all the time. I want my managers working smarter, not harder. And really, we can use these tools and have the customers work smarter, not harder. And that way, they're not stressed, because we all know moving is not the best time for anybody. So if you can make it just a little bit better, you create a great experience for your customer.
That's fair. So I've seen a couple questions come in, Jim, about this and just kind of how you engage them. And I know one. So one question is, do you have it to manually send the booking confirmation, or is there a way for the website to automatically send it, or how are you using this form by itself?
This form is, I created a CRM event in SiteLink. So when the lead gets placed into SiteLink, it triggers a CRM event. So unfortunately, there is no way to do it automatically right now.
Fair. So this is the reservation follow-up. And so, Jim, did you say reservation entered was your trigger?
Lead entered.
Lead entered. All right, cool.
Lead entered.
So this is the start date. I want it the day after. You want it 0? Is that how you usually do it?
0. That way it pops up that day.
Okay, so actually I was going to ask you, what's the difference, and I just to explain to everybody on this audience, what's the difference between 0 versus 1?
Okay, so 0, if you put the lead in today, it will show up on your reminder screen today. It's hopefully within minutes. I've seen it take a little longer than that, but they're going on. If you default it to 1, it will show up the next business day, so it will be there the next morning for you.
Cool. And then single occurrence, you want it for leads, and for this.
I want it for.
Go ahead.
Yes, and then I go down and change it to the letter I want, and then I would go down and change it to right.
So this goes back to the form that's available. So like the form that we just modified and customized, and there's a company that actually helped Mooney finish his to make it into the beautiful HTML format. Then he chose it and saved, and actually we can just put it in. It's fine.
Yep.
It's not live data. This is Jim and Jim experience. So now this is in the system.
Right.
So these now CRM events will show up over here in everybody's reminders. So when Joe Schmo is the manager and running this thing, Mooney already set up the limitations and the controls. So when a lead is entered, he has this email. It's beautiful. It has these links, and then it goes straight to this.
Jim, while you're on the screen, I want to point out something to people that I've seen a lot. Go up to where the reminder screen is and hit the arrow over to the left. Okay, a lot of times I walk into stores when I'm helping people out, and the reminder screen's on the left-hand side. The problem is when it's there, there'll be actually things, if you have too much on your reminder screen, you'll miss something. That's why I always recommend you keep the reminder screen on the right-hand side.
That is a good one to know. That is a good one to know. And I know that the system itself, I will be honest,
it defaults to the left.
It defaults to the left, but whatever you leave it on, it'll stay there.
Correct.
So
yes.
If I log off, the reminders will still stay on my right-hand side, which is actually quite helpful.
Yes.
Okay, that's actually very good.
It would show up just there in the reminder screen.
Yes, and then as everyone knows, these things, all the reminders just constantly get updated depending on all these different triggers in the system and all these different little things. So that's good. I wanted to bring up one more thing as it's come up in this chat, and we have some questions, Mooney. But I wanted to go back into form setup and actually bring back the insurance piece. So one of the things that has come up in some of these questions is how are you then, actually, I liked how this one looked. These great icons at the bottom I really love, but how are you then handling the two big risks, right? That I will say that I've heard, and I'm guessing you have to confirm, is how are you handling insurance and how are you handling driver's license? How are you handling those types of remedies with offering online move-ins, with not seeing the whites in the eyes of the person you're getting from? These are the hesitations and things. How did you guys make that jump? How are you alleviating that pain point?
Okay, well, there's a couple of really, really great parts for that. And Jim, we're using Beta Insurance, which is one of Storable's partners. So we're using the recommended levels in SiteLink for insurance, which is a fantastic part. and I don't know if it's set up on here or not, but realistically, if you're using beta or SourceWire insurance through Storable, you can actually default what is the recommended level for every unit type you have. So by having that set up, when you go to rent that unit, SiteLink will automatically default to rent that unit will automatically default to the insurance level you told the system you want to be there. Yes, the customer can opt to take it off, and we have that issue on our website as well. What we've done on our website is we have a blurb that says, hey, if you elect to not do this, you have to provide a declaration page within 48 hours. And then we have a few trigger points that we use internally to remind the people to we want that declaration page. And we use the proof of insurance in the insurance setup. That way we can load the proof into SiteLink so we know whether they have our insurance, whether they have proof of insurance, or whether they have no insurance. And they're the ones we're going to focus on. But Jim, to answer your question, what we've done, if you go into the email setup, did you put mine in there, Jim?
Yep.
Okay, so if you go in there, we have, no, you put the driver's license ones in there.
Oh, no, I couldn't. I did not. I apologize.
You have the screenshot of them?
Yeah, actually.
So what we've done while Jim is looking for this, we actually created an email template. So when I get an online rental, whether it's from my website or from the Storable link, we have an email that's built into SiteLink that we automatically send to the customer saying, thank you for your renting from us. We hope everything went well. As a reminder, we do require a copy of your ID to complete the file, and we ask them to just take a picture and email it back to us so we can then upload it into SiteLink. And we put policies in place and triggers in place for when we send it out. We schedule a reminder that 2 days later the manager's going to check, and then once a week we go back to last week to make sure we dot the I's and cross the T's to make sure all the forms are signed and we got the insurance and we got the driver's license. We do have to chase some people down, but most people are pretty good about supplying what we ask for.
I can't find the screenshot I had before, but it's one of these. You just made a custom script, right? Like you just made a custom email.
I made a custom script just like that. I made one for driver's license, and I made one for driver's license and proof of insurance. So I have two different ones. So depending on what I need to send to the customer, I have a template for each one, and we just go into notes and then email and grab the template we want and send it, and it goes right out to the customer. But Jim, while you're on here, we also, as you can see, we got the move-in URL right there. That way it shows in the body of the email, because I send all my attachments as PDFs, so I don't want them in the body, because sometimes in the body they look funny. So I always put the URL in both places, on the letter and in the body of the email. So they just, this way, if they do one and not the other, I hit them at both parts with the same information.
I think that's great by itself. There's been a couple questions. I love seeing a lot of familiar faces, a lot of names that you and I both love. I'm sorry, some people are just great, and I love seeing some names. But there's some questions about SMS with texting to clients and actually going with the reservations and reservation completions and other items.
Right.
Have you played with that at all? Have you had any luck with it? Have you, where do you stand with using SMS for reservations or move-ins and those kind of items?
We are working with SMS Resources with Gene Clemens Group. We have not really tested the texting part of it yet because there are some hiccups with doing the rentals and all on the smartphone for the e-sign portion of it that you guys are still working through. So I try to tell everybody that I'd rather have them complete the rental on a tablet or computer. So by sending the SMS, it's, right now I prefer to email. We have looked at it. We are using SMS for other features for like getting reviews and things like, for reminders for past due people and stuff like that. But right now, strictly for rentals, we're sticking with the email portion.
Okay. There's been a handful of people asking about Christina's company name. So I'm actually going to add this to a slide while we continue on so people can see the company that actually Christina used. And I know also in the follow-up email after this webinar, we will definitely send out some kind of a recap. We'll also send the links to the storage forum and training videos of like kind of what Jim is talking about. How to modify your form setup, how to modify some of these email setups and those tips. And then we'll also put in there the couple companies that I know that actually offer this. So you guys can kind of,
Right.
other people can actually reach out. And I know also, to be honest, Mooney's one of those people that if you ever reach out to him, he will always just assist and say, hey, this is who I use. Here's some resources. Here's contacts.
Right.
So I know that's something that he definitely will offer.
Right. And again, Jim, if you're not comfortable with HTML letter and formatting and all that, do yourself a favor and just pay to have them done. And realistically, we talked about this earlier, Jim, offline. CRM is one of my favorite parts of the system, and I know we're kind of segueing, but you can, if you're going to do that, think about your whole CRM package first and get all your letters done at once. That way your costs will be lower because you can build letters, multiple letters easier than doing one-offs. But CRM is definitely something that if you're not utilizing it, you're missing out.
So I'm looking through a couple of these questions to see if there's anything else that I wanted to hit on right now. Okay.
So, Jim, can we ask a question to the group? How many people are using that SiteLink reservation completion link right now? Do we know?
We could do a poll.
Yes. That would be interesting to see.
I am going to ask Alex to come out from behind
the curtain.
This is Alex. I think the best thing, if folks just want to go in the chat feature, unfortunately creating a poll during a live webinar doesn't work too well. But if you just want to throw in the chat yes or no, we can kind of get a ballpark idea through that.
Cool.
That'd be great.
Because I can tell you, Jim, segueing to what we're talking about with the reservation completion link, it has been my manager's favorite thing because now they can just send the link and not worry about spending 10 or 12 minutes on the phone with somebody and missing another call or missing another customer because they're tied up on the phone for that long. So, and again, if they're driving or whatever, they don't have their license with them, they won't pull over. Yeah, and some people, let's face it, some people are still and don't want to give pertinent information like their driver's license number over the telephone.
So scanning through a lot of the responses right now, there's a lot of people that have said, I didn't know it existed. I think there's a really big chunk that did not know about it. And there's a few that either say sometimes or yes, we are using it. Cool. But I think the overall arching kind of response is just kind of looking through this is that many people did not know this was a thing.
Well, that's the whole reason why we did this.
So, okay, so let's coming into something else. So, Jim, if you looked at your online move-ins, no matter if it was instant or if it's after using this, what kind of increase did you see before and after? Like if you said January to March to January, February, March versus COVID when you kind of implemented this piece, what kind of transition did you see? Is it certain markets? Is it across your portfolio? Like what?
Again, I really don't think I could say because of this tool I've seen more rentals. I've seen more effective rentals because we're making life easier for customers. So instead of having them come in where they would in the past or things like that, we're utilizing a new tool to help us out. I mean, I can tell you, since this thing launched the middle of May, right, Jim?
Yeah, it was May.
May 15th, somewhere around there. I've had 237 reservation completions across 15 stores.
Wow. So
on top of my online rentals and my people who go to the website and just rent online, this is above and beyond those. So these are ones that we're jumping ahead a little bit, but by tracking the S sources code, I can tell you where they're coming from now too. So I can tell you whether we're a spare foot call center, just walk in from my website, whatever, that we use the link to convert these things. The last month I had 42 of them. I had like 97 online rentals. I had 42 more conversions.
What's been the response then from implementing this? And I do see a lot of questions, and I will be honest, I see a lot of questions about training or assistance with this or explaining a couple of these functionalities and walking through it. And I have some resources that we will definitely send out to everybody who's on this call to walk through some of these things. Plus, there's Jim's contact in mine too, so I want to at least point that out. But I guess, Jim, so if I'm your manager or if I'm one of your prospects, what kind of things am I getting? Or so I guess if I'm your manager and Alex is your prospect, we'll give examples here. what kind of things from my perspective are you getting or not getting, or are you getting pushback from me, the front end, or are you getting like excitement, or like what kind of stuff are you getting from managers?
Really excitement, because it's making their job easier. Because we are able to take, if Alex is a customer and he's going through an ugly divorce and he's moving out and all these things, and Alex has got to find a storage unit right now, and he's home and he's online. We can send Alex Jim, you can send Alex the link right now, and he can do everything while he's sitting in his house and not worry about it. Once we've identified what unit he wants, make sure we pick the right size. And one of the great things with this, because we use the Veritech system for the value pricing, I can upsell you over the phone into a more expensive 10 by 10 and make sure you get the right insurance because it's defaulted already. And I can say, by the way, Alex, I can have a lock waiting for you in your unit. I can sell a lock to you. That way, when you come in, you break my tab, the lock's in the unit, your code's ready, and you can start moving in. So I can upsell you. I can get we talk about the insurance, and I can upsell you. I can sell you a lock at the same time.
So 2 questions have come out of the statement that you actually just said. One is, can you explain what Veritech is?
Okay, Veritech is, and we just did a webinar last week with this. Veritech is a value pricing program they're based in California, very highly recommended. Basically, every 10 by 10 unit on your property is not worth the same amount of money. If it's closer to the gate, it's sort of like buying an airline seat or a hotel room. If you want to pay more for a window, or you want to pay more for leg room on the exit row, you're going to do it. The same seat, but you're going to pay more. Veritech has an algorithm in there it's super slick. Integrates with SiteLink seamlessly. It gives us reports every day. So if I have my 10 by 10 right by the front gate, and my normal rate's $100, well, that's my best one on the property. I can rent that one for $122. The one in the middle of my property, which has still got good access but not great, I can sell that one for $120. And then my standard one, or my regular one, could be the unit on the back end of the property with a small door. Yes, I do have that standard or value priced unit, but if you want one of my better ones, it'll cost you more. And I can tell you, most people, some markets work well with it, but again, it's all on Jim. We talked earlier about the manager buy-in and getting the manager to understand the program and not just say, hey, here it is, go and do it. Works well.
How are you handling, the other question that came up is, how are you handling, collecting the marketing data for these online move-ins for Jim?
Well, we have we created our new customer data survey that we can email to the customer using eSign, and they would just check the box off, and when it comes back in, we can just go back in and update the marketing survey.
Okay. And just
it's a little bit it's a manual process, but it's still there.
Are you, so out of the marketing questions, out of curiosity, just to dive into a little bit more, within SiteLink, there's a lot of marketing questions and you can ask. Are there specific things you want to ask clients versus others that you found that are not as important, or not as, too many questions to not answer things? Like, what are you trying? What are the major things you're trying to track? I guess is my curiosity.
Well, the ones we track, you're going to know, the big questions for me is, have you used storage before? How'd you find us? And we usually know that from where they're coming from. And how many other places have you checked? They're kind of the big. Yes, you can get into whether they own a home or they rent an apartment, or why they're using storage and things like that. They're all vital. But for me, the big ones are: have you used storage before? Why'd you pick us? And how many other places have you checked? They're the big 3 for me.
Okay. So one of the settings that we also want to highlight is this, and how to turn this on, right? And this, this is part of the training pieces. But within Corporate Control Center, I actually have location 8 for this instance, and we can kind of talk about these things. So Mooney, do you want to describe kind of what are the things you have to do in here, and then I can show an example of what it looks like?
So if you click on the web template commerce gateway right there, go into online move-ins, and you basically want to enable online move-ins. And then if you offer the insurance, which if you're using SourceSmart or Beta or anything, you click on that, and you can just type in the URL that you would have from Damon or anybody that does companies. which would be the URL for like the brochure or anything like that, that they can see that there. So that really, that's it. You click those 3 things, put them in, and you're good to go.
I'm just going to save just so.
Right.
This database is blind. Let me. Yeah, this one's a demo database. There's not a lot of stuff in here to do it. But one of the things about this is that you have to go into the Corporate Control Center web template configuration to actually enable online move-ins. Then you can customize some of these things in here, right? So you go to the different settings, just like most things in SiteLink, customize the different things you need. And actually, if I open up, I wonder if I can open up yours, Jim. I'm going to open up what yours looks like. See if I can find an example for everybody.
And realistically, Jim, since we're only using it for this one purpose, we're not using the SiteLink template per se for other functions. Our website still does most of our stuff for us.
Mm-hmm.
I only went on and activated the online movement portion.
So that is exactly what I wanted to highlight. So there are a lot of questions in the chat functions about, and Jim, this is your website. Jim is using a web developer in the industry, and he's using the API behind the scenes to actually work with it. He is offering, like he's been stating, that rent now and pay bills for his properties, right? So like he has this built into his facilities, and this functionality is built into SiteLink using the API. What Jim is also stating.
I want you to stop right there, Jim, because there's one very important point that we should bring up for these people, and it's kind of down the road. But right now, where you see rent or call now or get a quote, one of the things you got to be very, very careful with when you're using this reservation link that you're going to send out. If you don't have any units available, you don't want to send the form out, because you're going to send them back to the portal, and since there's no unit to rent, they're going to make another reservation, which just duplicates stuff. So the one thing we've had to train our managers on, especially when we're full, to make sure you have a unit of that available before you send them the link, or else you're going to start creating a merry-go-round of leads. And I can explain to anybody who wants to talk about that offline. I'd be more than happy to walk them through it.
Sure, that's good to hear. One of the questions is just an example of what this looks like, and I'm just going to log into a demo database just to show an example of what the experience looks like from a customer's perspective who's using this kind of online move-in piece outside of Jim's website, right? So the custom piece of just the online move-in reservation completion. And while I'm doing that, Jim, there was another question. Did you get much resistance from making insurance mandatory with online move-ins? And I know you approach it a little bit differently than many, but I was curious what your thoughts were there.
We've had, insurance, again, I don't like to use the word mandatory. Insurance is a requirement of my lease. So it's phrased a little differently, but even when people walk in the front door or over the phone, if they don't have insurance, a declaration page with them, we make them take our insurance until they can provide us a declaration page, and then we will move the insurance going forward. We do have people, and we're probably online, we're probably about 80% of people take insurance. The ones that do not take the insurance, again, we have, Jim, click on Rent Now for me. I don't know, just one of those. I don't know if it's going to show up or not, because we've made some changes to the website recently. Yeah, you got to go through and all that stuff. Yeah, they changed it a little bit, but with the insurance, there's a spot there that says if you don't have it, you got to provide it within 48 hours. And the managers are very good at following up with people. And we'll call Jim, hey, Jim, you rented a unit online. We noticed you didn't take our insurance. Per the information we provided you, you have to provide us a declaration page. If not, we're going to have to enroll you in our beta program. And a lot of people say, just go ahead and enroll me. So I will enroll them, and then I will e-sign them the document for them to sign. So even the ones that don't take insurance, we still have several of them that will come back and just take it because they don't have a declaration page, they can't get a copy of it, or it's not worth their time for the $13. And just for everybody's edification, when we start our insurance, we recommend the mid-level up to a 10 by 20. So we use the $2,000 to $3,000 and $5,000 policy from Bader. So we recommend a $3,000 policy. That way, if they squawk, you can always back down to $9,000. but anything bigger than a 10 by 20 and bigger, we recommend a $5,000 policy, because bigger unit, more belongings in there, and it just seemed to be working well, that people will just take it.
How are you handling, one of the questions that just came up, and I know there's a lot of questions, and I apologize if we've not been able to get to everybody, but I also want to handle a handful of these. How are you handling lock sales? I'm going to close this.
Okay. So on our website, if you if you go back to that one,
sure.
With our partnership with StoragePug, our website company, we actually include a lock with the rent. Lock is part of the rental, and you'll see that on there. So what we've done is we actually, again, we use the seal tags, and we have a lock in the unit with a just a label on it with the unit number. So when they rent the unit, they're going to pay for the lock right then and there. Using the SiteLink conversion portal, we have to remember that. So we have to go back and add them for a lock. But I can tell you, we started adding locks probably in May. We started testing it. Maybe across all of our rentals that are remote properties, we've had 10 people return the lock that don't want them. Most people do, when they realize they have a lock waiting for them, they think it's great, because that way they don't have to stop and buy one. But it's integrated through our website, and the ones that we do the conversions through SiteLink's link, we have to go back and add to them later. But by that point in time, we've already talked to them about it, so they know there's a lock waiting for them, and they know there's a charge coming for it.
And then what are you doing with somebody who does, if they don't choose one of your preferred insurances, how are they doing the home piece? How are you then adding that into SiteLink itself? Is that just a manual step to the manager, or is that a common thing? I mean, is it a thing that many customers are actually choosing to bring their own, or is it such a small use case, or how are you handling that?
We do have a decent amount of people who bring in their insurance, and you have to make sure that you enable if you're in the insurance setup and you're using Beta or SourcePoint, you have to enable proof of insurance and expiration date. I highly recommend that. And then what we do when we get the declaration page emailed to us, we will just upload it in the information, and then we will upload the copy of the declaration page PDF into the picture field in SiteLink. That way we have it in there, but we also have proof of what they sent us.
Okay. There's a handful. Let's see. I guess honestly, one question, Jim, is if you were to pick something to get started with, with all these different pieces, right? So turning it on, setting it up, customizing your CRM letters, customize your email templates, customizing your forms. How would you start that process? What would be your first couple things you would do?
Easiest thing, I would turn it on, Jim, because the forms and letters, you can use the generic RTF letters in the booking confirmation and the lead follow-up. I would just get it turned on and start with it, and then you can start tweaking as you go. If you want to have your letters, if you want to have new pretty letters with pictures and all that built, you can do that and add them in there. Get it set up. So I would turn it on, and I would create the lead follow-up letter trigger in the CRM, and get that going and have everything set up, and then build the email templates. So those would be the three part one, turn it on, 1A, make sure the letters are right, and 1B, make sure the email template is right. Once you get that done, everything else you can go as you go through. If you want to go back and do the insurance, you can do that, and the insurance is done across the board, everything. So it's mandatory across everything, not just the online rentals. But it's a process. And again, the biggest thing is developing the plan. And it took me a little bit of time to do this and get the managers to buy into it and understand the process and understand the flow. Once they understand the flow and they start realizing how simple it is, I can tell you, Jim, I'm helping out a friend in Ohio with a store, and they weren't using e-sign. They weren't, I got them a tablet, and I love the tablets on my stores for e-sign versus a second monitor. It's just my preference. Got her tablet set up, got everything set up with the e-sign, activated the link for her. In 1 week, she had three rentals using the link because people didn't want to come out. She just sent them the link.
So the screen that I have in front of me is actually the tutorial on Storage Forum, SiteLink Storage Forum. And one of the examples I actually wanted to show, like Jim was saying, is to turn it on. So there's the settings and the step-by-step guide. And then this is an example of what that kind of interface looks like from a tenant's perspective. You can customize, through that configuration. And each of these things will kind of walk you through what it would look like. And you can kind of modify how this would work. But from a customer's or a tenant's perspective, I guess is a better example.
Stop right there, Jim. Yep. So if you have the insurance defaulted, it's going to be already there. Okay, and if you had somebody pay the reservation fee, it'll show up on the move-in cost section as a negative that the reservation fee is being applied to the admin fee if you have it set up correctly.
Okay, so that's great. And here is just some more of the screens that'll actually do it, and then you actually get the confirmation afterwards.
And if you scroll down a second, the more information you put in, like name, phone number, email address, all that stuff will populate in that thing for them. So all they got to do is fill in the missing pieces.
That was right. So I know it's almost getting close to the hour window, and that's usually kind of the line that we kind of like to stop with webinars, just for kind of look at everyone's time, and especially Jim, your time, and I appreciate that. Looking ahead, are there any other adjustments outside of what you've already done, right? So this is used currently through any lead that you have in, right? Through anybody who calls your facilities with that, a spare foot lead, a lock-in lead, like it could be anybody, right? Is that also true?
Yes.
Okay. So looking ahead at any other adjustments during these times and anything else, is there anything else that you would suggest, or you are kind of, I guess, for other people inquiring minds, are you looking ahead and saying, like, what else could I be doing? Like, what other things could I be doing to address this? Or is this really like solving most of the problems right now that you found?
It's solving a lot of problems. The more I'm doing is kind of behind the scenes. And Jim, you know me, I'm a big data geek. So I like looking at my S sources and seeing where my leads are coming from. So I can tell you how the people that are using this, how many came from Sparefoot, or how many came from our call center, or how many were on my website and made a reservation or a quote that weren't ready to rent yet, that I was able to use this link and get them to rent the unit. So by using that data, I can tell where it's coming from. And again, go back. If you talk to Melissa Siles, who's fantastic at marketing and all that, the more we know, the more we can focus our efforts on getting ourselves put in the right places at the right time for the right people to make that decision.
Yeah. And I'm going to say that probably opens up a whole nother webinar that we could probably spend a whole other hour talking about, is actually tracking the data and using the data that's already in the system. And, Jim used a word called S-source, which he and I've used for years. There's a term that's actually in SiteLink, and it's a field that if you export a lot of stuff, you can really figure out where leads come from. So that's what Jim can actually use to truly get, ROI of each of these different, marketing avenues. And like he said, that this tool is actually keeping that, so that he really gets to keep the effectiveness. So when he was talking about the numbers he had of online reservation completions through X and Y timeframes, he knows because of the data that's there. And like he was talking about those other avenues he's using, all that stuff is tracked if everyone uses it the same.
Right. Well, and also, Jim, accounts, because one of the questions earlier was insurance. So I can go back and tell you of my rentals, how many were online, who took what insurance, and how many used the conversion link, who took what insurance. So I can isolate there. And we've been trying to work with our website to say, hey, if somebody, backs off to 13, can we have a little pop-up that says, hey, are you sure you want to defer from the recommended level, and kind of tweak things. And things are always evolving, and what worked yesterday and what worked last week is not going to work tomorrow or 2 months from now. So we always want to make sure we're evaluating data, finding out what customers are doing, because right now, as you talked about earlier when we first started, Jim, Amazon Prime and things like that, people want instant gratification. People want instant results. And if we can use that link and get them the link and they can do the rental and it's done and they're ready for it, it's a lot easier for them to try to come in on a Saturday when we're open 9 to 12 or 9 to 4 to rent the unit, and they're running late, they can't get there, and they're all sweaty and dirty because they're still packing. It just makes life simple.
I think, and Jim, I truly just want to thank you for being a guinea pig, which I know that you're used to that, which I don't mind, and you don't either. But I also think there's a lot of opportunity with these types of conversations where, like myself and someone like yourself, or a couple other people who were on this webinar, I can see some names that would also be really good people that would be great at showing, hey, here's a tool, right? And this is how you use that tool. And I think, it's really beneficial for operators to see that. And I think S.source is another field. I think CRM is another bucket of things. Marketing, I think, is another bucket. I think there's a handful of tools similar to this that could really open some operators' just eyes of like, whoa, I didn't even know this existed, which is huge. So I just really want to appreciate your honesty and that your willingness to share how you use something in SiteLink with other operators in the industry.
Hey, Jim, we all learn from each other. I mean, the network, we had Ben Hendricks out in 5-star, Christina Avellino, John Manus, Stephanie Tharp, the list goes on and on. We all learn from each other. We all pick each other's brains. We all get better because of each other's help. I mean, that's the one great thing about our industry is there's, excluding some maybe what they teach Orange Store, there is no, proprietary stuff they won't share. And what makes us better helps everybody else out. And, Bob Copper said, or one of the guys said, if the water rises for everybody, we're all doing better. So by utilizing this and what we find works, and that's the one thing I missed really truly this year is the conferences, not just going to Vegas or Nashville or wherever we're going to be this time, but it's the interaction with the peers and our friends and colleagues that who've tried things and are willing to share and we talk, well, what if you did this, and what if you did, like Ben Hendricks and I had a great conversation the other day about e-sign. He was talking about trucks and trying to do his trucks through e-sign. I said, what if you try having a form for each truck? He goes, I never thought of that. So it's just spitballing and brain firing and just kind of what ifs and talking about things and not being afraid to take a chance. I mean, I hate when I hear, well, that's the way we've always done it. That just, it's like nails on a chalkboard to me because, we have to evolve because if not, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. The other ask I'm going to say, and I think Alex is going to come on here in a second to say a couple words too, but one of the things I think this opens the door about is some other features to discuss. If you guys have any other topics within SiteLink that you would like to hear more about and have this type of webinar, right? That have an operator or maybe two operators come in plus myself to really just talk about a function, Google Maps, pick a function, price optimizer, one of them, and discuss how they use it, why they use it, then I think that is wonderful. I think that kind of goes back to what Jim is saying is that here's an operator who's willing to share and we all learn from each other. So love to hear more from other users and attendees in this webinar. I know that we are looking to do this again. Jim, I'm going to pick on you again just because I can. But just pick, once a month or some kind of reoccurrence that we can actually start doing this to get some more engagement. I think is great.
Jim, a great one would be, if you're not using value pricing, you definitely utilize the SiteLink revenue management tools that are built in. I mean, yes, it's free in there, and it's a starting place. You can step off with that, and really, but there's so many things in there that you can set up regionally, levelly, store by store. I mean, there's a lot of great tools in there, and if you're not thinking about value pricing or revenue management in that aspect, think about it. There are tools there that will help you make the decisions. And, as long as you're not afraid to try something new, there's tools out there and there are people out there who like myself and other people. Katie Cowan out of Texas is a great one. She's a great friend of ours and she loves to share and help each other out. So just keep it going.
So just for Mooney, just for your own reference, Katie is on. She's also posted a handful of questions, and she is one of those people that I'm going to pick out to kind of hopefully use in the future for one of these. And she just said hi. So,
well, me and Katie would be a great pair.
That would be.
Yes,
that is true. There's a lot of things we should definitely talk about. To close, Alex, do you have anything just to kind of recap?
Well, first off, I'd like to echo what Jim Ferguson said and thank Jim Mooney for being so generous with his time and with his peers in the industry to help them out, as well as thank Jim Ferguson for coordinating this effort. And thank all of you for giving us an hour of your time to look over all of this. As Jim Ferguson mentioned at the beginning, we will send out a recap email that will also include a link to the recording. So if there's a part you want to come back to, or if you want to forward this to a colleague and say, hey, we really need to try this, you can do that. If we did not get to your question, we will also do our best to follow up with those on the back end so that you can get an answer to those. Just give us a little time, as we had a really engaged audience, which is great to see. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end for the day. Again, thank you all around and have a great rest of the week.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Alex.